To love America. And you have to love the fact that you're an American. Where else but in America could you live in this country? The time will come when we must come to a time. And that time is now. From those to whom little is given, little is expected. Today, I come before the voters of this great state to announce that James Tripp will be a candidate for United States Senator.
Yes!
You want to know why James Tripp is running. James Tripp is running because you're not happy with the other candidates in the race. You want somebody else to run for senator. You want somebody like you. You want James Tripp. Who is James Tripp? To answer that question, you have to ask yourself, who are you? When you know who you are, you'll know who James Tripp is. I am he, as you are he, as you are me, and we are all together. Goo goo gajoo. I'm running as a member of your party. Because I believe in the things you believe in. The things you believe in are the things I believe in. The good things. The right things. The things that make us all proud to be Americans. Ask not where James Tripp stands on an issue. Ask yourself where you stand on an issue, because then you will know where James Tripp stands. He stands with you. You say to yourself, well, how can James Tripp be for what I'm for and be for what my neighbor's for, when what my neighbor's for is not what I'm for? To that I say, stop asking so many questions. Question authority, but do not question me. For every yin, there's a yang. For every yes, there's a no. For every James Tripp, there's a Tripp James. Tonight, I'd like to speak to you about my platform, but I can see from my notes that I don't have one. You want to know what James Tripp will do for this country. And like you, I also want to know. But James Tripp can't know what he will do for America until he knows what America wants him to do. James Tripp wants to do what's good for America. The days of politicians doing what's bad for America are over. I've been to the mountaintop. And there's a McDonald's with a drive-through window there. They're building a row of condos. You can see the Hollywood sign off to the side. People are afraid of what it takes to make it to the mountaintop. They're afraid of that myth that's kind of like the myth of Sisyphus about the man rolling the rock up the hill only to have it fall back down on him. Only it's a completely different myth. They're afraid of failure. But just think about what waits for us if we make it to the mountaintop. Fries. Large fries. And for only 39 cents more, you can supersize.
Yes!
James Tripp knows what you want. You want James Tripp. You want change, but you want things to remain the same. People ask, what does James Tripp want? What do I want? What do I want? I want what they want. What every guy who came over here and spilt his guts and gave everything he had wants. For my country to love me the way I love it. That's what I want. My fellow Americans, you must risk losing if you want to win. To those who say that we cannot win, I say that we cannot lose because our cause is just. We cannot lose because James Tripp knows what's right for America. The rights of Americans are what's right for America. And what's right for the rights of Americans is James Tripp. Whether you're black or white, yellow or red, brown or tan, or if you have polka dots. If you're any other color but blue, gray, or purple, James Tripp wants to do what's right for you. You have a right to your rights, and that's only right.
Well said.
Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're gay or straight, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, whether the weather is only partly sunny, I belong to your party because I believe in the things you believe in. It is the party of 1,000 points of view, and I agree with every one of them. It is the party of the left and the party of the right. It is the party of the liberals and the party of the conservatives. It is the party of Lincoln and the party of John Wilkes Booth. We had the New Deal, the New Society, the New Frontier. Now we need a new slogan. And our slogan will be, re-elect James Tripp. Now it's true, I haven't previously held any elected office, but we've decided to target that segment of the population who has no idea who the current senator is. So re-elect James Tripp. People will be like, I didn't even know James Tripp was a senator. He must be doing a pretty good job. Some people say that James Tripp doesn't want to take a stand on the issues. That's an interesting point, but not one I'm interested in. And not one that the voters of this great state are interested in. What are the issues of this campaign? We've adopted a don't ask, don't tell policy regarding that matter. You have to stand for something in this world, and people have to know where you stand. You have to draw a line. Taking a stand on an issue is where I draw the line. Let's not make an issue of what the issues are. The legitimate concerns of the voters are what I'm legitimately concerned with. Therefore, I will be forming a special tripartisan commission to look into just what the issues of this campaign are. I'm so dedicated to discerning what the issues of this campaign are that I will be appointing a special ad hoc committee of the commission to initiate a fact-finding probe. The committee will be given the specific authority by the commission to conduct a thorough demographic study regarding the development of specific regional, cultural, and political biases which result in the creation of precise points of view, which we will then integrate into the campaign as issues. I forgot what I was talking about. Yes, the issues. The issues. That's not what I want to talk about. The liberal press, they're the ones that want to talk about the issues. They just don't get it. James Tripp stands. Where all of the good citizens of this great nation stand. He stands on the side of what's right for America. Because what's right for America is all right with James Tripp. Issues? Schmissues. That's not what the people want to talk about. The people want to talk about the things that they want to talk about. They don't want to get into some rigmarole about who thinks what. Let those other people over there worry about that. We're not going to be concerned with that here. We must be certain that we are a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. The biggest problem we have today is that people are not willing to admit that we have a problem. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. You know where James Tripp stands. He stands with you. You don't want to pay taxes. So if James Tripp is elected your next senator, don't pay any taxes. If you do that, you may be arrested. The government has waged a war on drugs. It has waged a war on poverty. And every April 15th, the government wages a war on the American worker.
Yeah.
Form W2, you sunk my battleship of dreams. Some say the tax should be flat. I say it should be round, and I claim it for Queen Isabella of Spain. The time to repeal the personal income tax is now. No homework on Fridays. Sometimes you have to make the tough decisions. And it's tough to make that kind of a decision. James Tripp is not for sale. That's why I say, get government out of the regulation of the tobacco industry. Get government out of the regulation of the healthcare industry. Get government out of the regulation of the insurance industry. And get government out of the regulation of guns. Now, some people say, didn't James Tripp used to be a public affairs consultant for the National Rifle Association? Well, yes, I was. But that doesn't mean I have any lingering allegiance to them or their cause. I'm not going to go to Washington to try to pass some fancy gun legislation, because the best gun legislation is no legislation. We already have all the gun legislation we need. It's called the Constitution. Maybe some of you have heard about this document. In it, every American is guaranteed the right to bear arms. To those who would vote for gun legislation, I'd like to remind you of the NRA's slogan, guns don't kill people, we do. People say that kids are bringing guns to school today, and maybe the next senator from California ought to do something about that. Poppycock. I say, if you find a kid with a gun in school, teach him how to use that weapon. That's the trouble with kids today. They go out, they get a gun, and they kill someone before they've even learned how to fire the weapon properly. My day, we would have qualified on a range before pulling a stunt like that. There's just no discipline. That's what we need. Discipline. Not gun control. And what better way to discipline someone than with the butt of a gun? Guns aren't the problem. The types of gangs kids are in are the problem. I was in a gang when I was a kid. It was called the Cub Scouts. Our colors were blue and gold. Our flag was red, white, and blue. Those were the only colors we cared about. We didn't have rumbles. We had jamborees. We never had any trouble with any gun-toting weeblos. We did have a badge for it. Guns aren't the problem. People are the problem. That's why we need guns, to get rid of the problem. with guns aren't the problem. It's people without guns who are the problem. If all of America was armed, criminals would think twice before pulling a gun on Joe Public. We've got to put a gun in the hand of every man, woman, and child in America. An armed America is a strong America. An armed America is a safe America. An armed America is your America. And I say, God bless an armed America. But enough about that, because I'm no longer affiliated with the NRA. Please believe me. And I can assure you, along with my campaign treasurer, that the contributions to this campaign and to my previous campaigns from the NRA, its members, and any of its ancillary organizations in no way represents any quid pro quo regarding my position on gun legislation. Now, some people say, wasn't James Tripp also a public affairs specialist for tobacco interests? Well, yes, I was. I was retained for some time by the Friends of Tobacco Farmers. Now, this group is not to be confused with the Tobacco Institute. We're very upset with those people. And again, their past support and their contributions to the present campaign in no way represents any quid pro quo regarding my position on tobacco legislation. I want to make it perfectly clear that what I say regarding tobacco is very close to what I believe. The point is that the American tobacco farmer has been getting a raw deal. And maybe I shouldn't talk in the parlance of drugs when I say deal, but I think you know what I mean. Nothing is as natural as a tobacco leaf. A marijuana leaf, perhaps, but that's another lobby altogether, and one that has not contributed to this or any of my campaigns. Now, some people who don't smoke complain that secondhand smoking is actually more hazardous than if you smoked yourself. That's why I say take up smoking just to be on the safe side. But don't start cold. Try easing into it with some of that nicotine gum. Next week, go out and get yourself a patch. So what if the Marlboro Man died of cancer? Who cares if that hump on Joe Camel's back is malignant? Everybody's got to die from something. Just let me die the way I want to die. Just let me die like an American. Now, some people claim that tobacco is a drug, and they say it ought to be regulated by the FDA. Horse hockey. The only drug these bureaucrats need to regulate is power. Oh sure, I guess it makes them feel like big shots to try to regulate the lives of some poor backwoods dirt farmers. They didn't go to some fancy law school like all these yahoos in Washington. But I think they did something a little more important. They grew the corn for the first Thanksgiving. They tilled the cotton to put clothes on our back. And yes, they grew the tobacco that will light the peace pipe smoked round the world. Farmers are what make this country great. And I don't want to be known as the guy who shut down the family farm. George Washington, the father of our country, was a tobacco farmer. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, was a tobacco farmer. We hold these truths to be self-evident. There isn't a more patriotic American than the tobacco farmer, and a strike against the American farmer is a strike against Lady Liberty herself, and I want no part of it. Now the FDA wants to limit the nicotine content of cigarettes. Next they'll be telling you what else you can't inhale and what you ought not to be sticking in your veins. They'll be saying aspirin is a drug and you ought not to take your daily vitamin. Then they want to reinstate the 18th Amendment, outlawing the sale of liquor. Oh, sure, if you give up drinking and smoking, you'll have more money, but nothing to spend it on. I say that America is a nation of adults, not children. We don't need the government to take on a parental role, because then we'd have to visit it on holidays. Say no to the regulation of the American farmer. Say no to the FDA. And say yes to the cool, fresh, invigorating taste of grown in the US of A tobacco. Let's see the Japanese try to outdo us on this one. They don't even have any land over there. How are they going to grow freedom? You know, nothing says liberty so much as that first hacking cough that wakes you up in the morning. That's when you can't wait to light up your first one of the day. And you do it with pride because you're an American. I love this country. And I love this land, and I love the American farmer. And I say, God bless the American farmer. And if anybody wants to do anything to hurt the American farmer, they're going to have to come through James Tripp first. A lot of people want to know, why James Tripp for senator? Couldn't one of the other candidates do just as good a job? Let me ask you a question. Are you better off now than you will be in 6 years? The answer is no. You need to vote James Tripp for senator. I have a simple plan if I'm elected. My plan is to hire a large staff of other people to create a complicated plan. My plan is simple for me. I want to be known as the education senator, as long as the people aren't educated about me. I believe that people should be educated, but they shouldn't be so educated that they vote for somebody else. A lot of people want to know what James Tripp would do about crime. Well, if I'm elected, I won't commit any crimes. Well, none that will affect the voters directly. Some people want to know if James Tripp has ever broken the law. To that I say, no one is above the law, no one is below the law, and no one is off to the side. Now I'd like to talk to you about some of the rumors that are being spread by the liberal press regarding the financing of the 1996 James Tripp for President campaign. Now, let me start off by saying I had very little to do with the day-to-day operations of the campaign committee. In fact, I don't think it would be too far from the truth to say that I had very little to do with the campaign at all. I was too busy running to be involved. Now, a lot of politicians would come up here and say, no matter what their campaign committees did, they are ultimately responsible. Well, not me. James Tripp does not have a martyr complex. As a matter of fact, I'll go so far as to point the finger at somebody else. It was the campaign treasurer. He did it. As everyone knows, who may be preparing an indictment against me, it is the campaign committee's treasurer who bears the ultimate fiscal responsibility for the committee's compliance with federal election laws, USC Titles 2 and 26, and the regulations prescribed by the Federal Election Commission, 11 CFR. Now, I barely know what I just said. How could I be responsible? Now, let me address some of the questions regarding the so-called slush fund. Now, what the paparazzi of this country have been calling a slush fund is nothing more than a petty cash account And it's petty to make such a big deal out of cash. Now, as far as the article in the Times by George Peckleby regarding a so-called enemies list, nothing could be further from the truth. It's just not true. How do you spell that guy's name anyway? Now, in regards to the so-called Chinese connection, Deng is dead. Everybody knew he was going to die, so what's the big deal if there was some deal made with a dead man? None of the other Chinese knew what the deal was, so there is no deal. And there is no Deng, so there's no witness to subpoena. So let's stop all of this China bashing. The Chinese are a great and vital people. They breed like rabbits. Now some people want to make an issue of my alleged use of a company phone whose charges far outdistance any legal contributions to my campaign fund. Now, I don't even think I made those phone calls, but I can't be sure. But my best intention tells me I wasn't there. Unless you have some kind of video surveillance. Now, there are some things I'm just not going to comment on. And I think you know what it is I'm not going to say. This is a land of truth, justice, and liberty. And we shouldn't be polluting the dialogue with questions about... questions. The American people don't want to hear it, and I don't want to say it. That's all I want to say about what I'm not saying. Now, initially, I prepared a list of things I wouldn't talk about. However, the list was at the top of the list, so I'll have no further comment regarding that matter. Future date, I'll issue a statement to reiterate what was not said today. So, let's not bring up the past, particularly last Tuesday. Let's to the future and the race we're engaged in. We live in a time when the universe is expanding. And I say no to those naysayers who would hasten a contracting universe. We must continue to fight the good fight, the fight for what is right. We can't let the liberal media elite of this country tell the voters what to think. Let me tell you what to think. James Tripp is not a criminal. People have got to know whether or not their senator is a crook. Well, I am not a crook. I broke no laws, not that I can recollect. My only desire is to serve the people of this great state. It enriches the lives of Mrs. Tripp, little 1, 2, and baby .5. We're an average family of proud Americans, steeped in freedom, and something I stepped in on the way to the stage, who believe that a government governs best when governed by James Tripp. Now, when I ran for president, I told you I have a vision for America. Well, it turned out I needed glasses. So now I have a new and improved vision. I have a vision of clean air for our children to breathe. I have a vision of fresh springs from which they can drink. I have a vision of amber fields of grain for them to play in. People question my candidacy. They say I can't win an election. They say I'm a dark horse. They say I've already lost a couple of elections. Well, that's funny, because I don't feel like a loser. I may have lost a race or two, but I was never defeated. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, I go good with a lightly spiced cashew dressing. William Faulkner once wrote, "No battle is ever won. They are not even fought. The field only reveals to man his own folly and despair, and victory is an illusion of philosophers and fools." I have no idea what that means. But let past defeats serve as a prelude to future victories. Tonight, I am reminded of a maxim of Winston Churchill's, who stated that politics are almost as exciting as war and quite as dangerous. In war, you can only be killed once, but in politics, many times. And by God, I have a lot more dying to do.
Yeah.
When my last race was over, people said, "Do you wish you hadn't run?" I would rather risk defeat than never have the chance for victory. We may have lost a race or two, but we are not losers. Because it is by losing that we will win. Because out of losing comes defiance, and out of defiance, victory. The promise we sought in a new land, we will find again in a land of new promise. We never lose when we run the race. There are no losers in defeat. The winner, he's the loser. We have not lost. We are not losers. There are no losers when you fight to win. There are only winners. Of course, some people are better winners than others. The politicians who won office may have known how to break the tape across the finish line first. But do they know what to do now that the race is won? All indications make it seem that they do. But that's not important to the point I was trying to make. George Eliot once said, "Any coward can fight a battle when he's sure of winning. But give me the man who has the pluck to fight when he's sure of losing." That's my way, sir. And there are many victories worse than a defeat. Maybe this is just another lost cause. But I'm reminded about what someone once said about lost causes. He said once, they were the only causes worth fighting. And you know you fight for the lost causes harder than for any of the others. Yes, you even die for them. Like the man we both knew, Mr. Payne. Mr. Payne. I'm reminded of the story of a little engine who thought he could. I'm reminded of the story. I can't remember the whole thing. But I think you know what it is I'm trying to say. Never give up. Never lose heart. Never give a sucker an even break. When we do all that we can do to do what it is that we're doing, we shall be done. A lot of people ask, how long will you be in this race? Well, we're going to be in this race until hell freezes over. Then we're going to go someplace where it's warmer. Let us look to the future without disregarding the past. Let us move forward, but let us also move back. Let us look north and then south. Let us look to the east and slightly to the left, which I guess is southeast. Let us take 2 steps diagonally and half a step to the side. Let us step to your partner, do-si-do. Promenade, turn her around, step to your left and promenade. Some people say you'd be throwing away your vote on James Tripp. Some people say, au revoir, mes chers enfants. But those people live in France. Why would anybody listen to those people? There comes a time in the history of any people when a choice must be made. A choice that will affect the destiny of that people for years to come. This is such a time. It is a time when the citizens of this great land can finally have a say in what goes on in this land that's great. In America, every vote counts. In Chicago, some votes count twice. Your vote for James Tripp counts. Nobody votes anymore, and if you do, you may be the only one. James Tripp can't make you save America. But you can't save America unless you vote for James Tripp. Your vote for James Tripp ensures that a government of the people, by the people, and for some of the people, will not perish from the earth. I call upon all who love freedom to stand with us now. Together we will achieve victory. Victory on the land, victory on the sea, victory in the air, victory however long and hard the road may be. Although to continue after November would be rather foolish. For without victory, we probably won't win. And while winning isn't everything, losing is even less than that. Never before have we had so much time in which to do so little. America will be great again. We're at the dawn of a new morning, the crest of 2 millennium, the inception of a new honor. God bless you, and God bless America. Yeah!